Hi, so welcome back to this new series on the other side of psychoactive plant medicines. And in today's episode, I'm really excited to be speaking to a friend of mine, Niaby, who I have actually spoken to in the New Monks podcast as well. So you can check out her episode that we did. It was quite a while ago now, but the link will be in the description. And yeah, happy to check in again with her as well since we last spoke on this podcast and just really dive into her experience with the plant medicines. So, welcome, Niaby, again to the hot seat.
It feels hot.
So, we've already spoken before on the New Monks podcast, which was a little while ago now, and I'm sure, we speak anyway. So much has happened since then. The unraveling continues, and you also started your own podcast series as well. So yeah, happy to have you here to speak on this specific topic because basically this is the friend that I've been speaking to for a while now about this specific topic, and we just wanted to dive in a bit deeper and to create this series and speak to other people as well.
It's really good to be back. Thank you for having me back. It's quite funny actually because when I have rewatched a little while ago the episode that we did together, the podcast, and that was the first podcast I'd ever done. It was like my first step of starting to speak out. And I look back at that podcast and I'm like, wow, look how much fear I was still in, even at that moment when I was being prepared to sort of start speaking about stuff. I could still see there was so much fear. There was so much that I wasn't ready to say or share with people. So yeah, it's been quite the journey for all of us. But yeah, it's definitely been quite the journey for myself as well. So yeah, thank you for having me back.
I forgot that was your first podcast because I remember, and I know exactly what you mean. It's like step by step, we're able to just fully be open, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a process.
Yeah. And it's difficult sometimes because some of the things that, we come to recognize is quite hard for other people to hear, I think.
Yeah, it is, and I think that is the process. The more we go through our processes, and the more we start to come out the other side, the more we're actually able to, acknowledge the truth. Because we've been like surrounding this sphere of lies for such a long time. So the truth can sometimes be quite challenging to hear. It can be painful, But as I say, it's when we start to truly acknowledge the truth, and start to surrender to the truth, that the truth can no longer cause us pain, because we're acknowledging it. But yeah, it's a process getting there, because we have all this sphere of lies for such a long time, and it's what we've built our whole lives on, our identities on, our egos. That's what our ego knows. So yeah, breaking it down can be tough, but we have to go there. That's part of the ascension process.
So true. And amazing that you could recognize how much you've grown as well since the last podcast. I love that.
A lot. And it took a lot of work to get me on that podcast in the first place. And then there's like how many, how much further I've come since then as well. But yeah, we're all going through it. It's what we're here for right now.
Yeah. And then speaking about difficult topics.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, I feel like this one it's quite delicate process, really.
It is.
Yeah. So, I've said it in the other episode as well and in the intro, the purpose really is just to bring another aspect to this topic, really, and not to cancel and shame or anything like that at all.
Yeah, it's just to talk about it, to talk about something, to bring different levels of awareness into the consciousness, to move different ideas into the collective consciousness, so we can all grow and expand into that. But yeah, as you say, it's not to cancel anything, it's not to tell anybody they're doing anything wrong or anything like that. It is literally just to bring this awareness into the field, so that people can start to think about it differently, thinking about something for themselves. Because obviously, I'm assuming your audience knows we're talking about ayahuasca, so I'll go straight in with that. I know we haven't mentioned the word yet.
I love it.
But it's become such a big part of the awakening. It's like, what people do, they start to awaken into the spiritual field. Oh, drink ayahuasca, because it's become so commonplace now. It was back in 2012 that I drank ayahuasca for the first time. just as I was like quitting my job as a stockbroker, and just that was the real start of my awakening process. So it was 2012. I drank. I was traveling in South and Central America, broke up with my boyfriend, my long-term boyfriend, and I was literally just looking for a 2-week retreat to get me off the traveling circuit, and just to get me away from, like, just to be able to heal. And what kept coming up, I was in Peru at the time that we broke up, and what kept coming up to me was, every time I looked, it's like ayahuasca, and it'd been coming for me for a while. But the point I was going to make with that was that I actually, until I started traveling, I'd never heard of ayahuasca. In 2012, it wasn't what it is now in the Western world. Like, some people knew about it, but it wasn't what it is now. And so I feel very lucky and privileged to have been there at the earlier stages of that. I mean, ayahuasca's been around for a very long time, much longer than that. But in terms of it coming into the West and into being popularized,
Yeah,
I feel very grateful that I got to experience it at that time, when it wasn't so well known, it wasn't popularized, and therefore hadn't been hijacked, which is what we're going to be speaking about today. Because I got to have those experiences when things were, a lot cleaner in the energetic field. Whereas now, when somebody's waking up, or when many people are waking up, because this has become popularized, as I said before, it's the first thing that people are turning to, without the knowledge or understanding of some of the dangers that now exist in that world. And that's the hijacking that we're going to speak about today.
I mean, it is fascinating how popular it is now. It really just boomed.
Yeah, it did. It's I think we've spoken before on what I always say, and I know you speak about this as well, is that the number one, the 101 of any spiritual awakening now, it shouldn't be drinking ayahuasca, it shouldn't be taking medicine, it shouldn't be doing healing. It should be developing your intuition, because the whole spiritual field has become hijacked. This is part of, as we go through this ascension process, we see it across everything. Those of us who are waking up from the darkness, that we've been living in for a long time, and we start to see the dark, ugly truth. Might move into the truther field, or maybe move into the spiritual field. But those that are against the ascension, they're very highly enlightened beings. I say highly enlightened, they're very high, maybe not so enlightened, but they're very high,
Intelligent.
They're like 11th dimension. They're way higher than what we are right now. So they're clever, and they know what they're doing, and they know how to hijack the ascension, and this is what they're trying to do. So they're hijacking the truther communities by infiltrating the truther communities by, putting truth in there, but also bringing lies in as well. There's this truth in lies and lies in truth that is so intertwined, and it's happening across the whole spiritual community as well, not just ayahuasca. Like, the whole community is being hijacked, and it's something that we really need to be aware of. It's not an attack on any particular shaman or healing or medicine or anything like that. It's just that as we go through this ascension process, we have to be aware of the hijacking that is happening. And with something like ayahuasca, it's such an easy hijack for them, because ayahuasca is this beautiful sacred medicine, which I just really want to acknowledge that I honor and respect this medicine and the journey that I've been on with it, and the growth that I have received from it. But as a medicine that opens us up to higher realms, to the fourth dimension, that allows us to have these psychedelic, psychoactive experiences. Many of us have been searching for these experiences through our lives through the use of drugs. We either we take things like pills, ecstasy, MDMA, ketamine, etc., to have the experience, because we know there's something more. So we take drugs to open to something more. And when we find that we can't always be in that reality of, that higher reality that does exist, but we're in this lower density reality, when we find we can't always be in that higher reality, we take drugs like cocaine or alcohol to numb us from that, to dumb us down, to desensitize us. And this has become the norm of our reality. So we naturally, as humans, we have I say naturally, we've been conditioned to have a lot of addictions to many different things in life, and drugs are one of those addictions that we have. So when we are unhealed from the addictions to taking drugs, or the need as to why we're taking the drugs, it's not the drug itself, it's what's going on inside of us, that we think that we have that addiction for. So when that is unhealed, which it is for so many people, when that's unhealed, it's so common. Like we're all so addicted to something. It's I've been on a really long journey to work on my addictions, and I'm pretty much there, but it's taken a long time. So we're all addicted to something at some point. And so something like ayahuasca, because people often move into taking it when they haven't healed their addiction to drugs, it becomes a very easy hijack for the darker forces to be able to come in and manipulate what's going on in the ayahuasca, in the ayahuasca circles. So for example, something I always say is, where addictions exist, entities persist. So if you're somebody who drinks alcohol, takes drugs, has sex addictions, gambling addictions, whatever that may be, they're unhealed, and you go into an ayahuasca circle, you're taking those entities with you. We all have entities. This is normal. Hopefully it's not going to be so much in the, as we move into the new world, but in the dimension that we're currently in, in the fear-based society that we currently live in, addiction entities exist within all of us. So we go to drink, we go into ceremony with these entities attached to us. And that's okay if you're drinking with, a shaman who has trained their whole life for this, who has, developed their own, has been on their own journey, who has healed and mastered their own addictions and everything else. Somebody who is, who's what I'm going to call a genuine shaman. If you go into a circle to drink with them, that they know how to hold space for ayahuasca. So we drink with these shamans. The number one role of a shaman, an ayahuasca shaman, is to make sure that the space is held, that the energy is clear and clean, and that anything that is trying to come into that ceremony is being held back. As we open up by drinking ayahuasca and we move into fourth dimension, or move into the astral realm, there's a lot of amazing, incredible stuff in the fourth dimension, but there's a lot of dark stuff there as well. There's a lot of heavy energies that exist there. The number one role of the shaman is to hold that back, is to make sure it doesn't come into the space. What we're seeing now, and this isn't an attack on any individual, but what we're seeing now is what I call, this is going to sound like an attack because of what I call them, but I call them have-a-go shamans. It's just a name that I've just said for many years now. So we have these have-a-go shamans who know how to serve the medicine, but they don't know how to hold the space for it. This is a weekend of training. This is not even, a month of training. This is intense work, because it's not just about being trained to hold space. It's about being in your own space, in your own clean energy field, as I've said before, mastering your addictions, being on that deep journey into self. It's so much more that is needed than just a month's training somewhere. And this is what we're seeing happening a lot at the moment. We're getting more and more of these have-a-go shamans coming through, and more people are drinking with these have-a-go shamans, and the space is not being held correctly. And what I believe is happening is, people are going into these spaces to drink with the have-a-go shamans, and we're getting dark energies and entities and beings that are coming through into that space. They're working through the shamans, or the have-a-go shamans, because these shamans do not know how to protect themselves. They're drinking, they're going into ceremony week after week, month after month, unprotected, and they're allowing, unbeknown to themselves, but they are allowing some really dark things to access them. And they don't know that they think they're doing the right thing. They're coming into they're coming into this space. They're serving this beautiful sacred medicine. They think they're doing the right thing by their communities and the people who are coming in and sitting and drinking with them. They're not aware that these darker energies are coming through and manipulating them. And so then the people who are going and drinking with them aren't protected. They're also receiving messages which they believe are through the plant medicine itself, but there's these dark energies that are coming through and maybe telling them that they're a shaman, that they're a healer, that they're this, that they're that, and they should go and train to be, a medicine man or woman. And then they're getting directed to train at low level training centers where they're not actually receiving what they should be receiving. And then this, what I'm calling the ayahuasca hijack, it's perpetuating because we're seeing more and more of these untrained have-a-go shamans serving medicine, and then we're seeing more and more people waking up and seeing ayahuasca as the first thing that they should do in terms of their ascension process. And so they're being drawn to go vibrationally. They're a match for the have-a-go shamans rather than the real shamans, because they're just waking up for the first time. They're still in there.
Yes.
So much healing to do. They've still got their addictions, their entities attached. They've still got all this stuff that they're vibrationally matching with the have-a-go shamans, and it's a freaking minefield out there now. Like, this wasn't how it was when I first started drinking, but it is now. And so we have to be really, really conscious and aware of that. And as I said at the beginning, the 101 of any spiritual awakening should be developing and training our intuition so that we can use our intuition and our discernment throughout this process. It used to be that I said, just be really, really careful with who you're drinking with, like choose your shaman wisely. But I personally feel that it's got to a point now where the hijacking has got so much, it's so ingrained, that I actually feel we need to start stepping away from the medicine altogether, which is a big and bold statement. That I thought I'd be making, because I honor and respect the medicine so much, and I honor and respect the journey that the medicine takes us on. But I think it's got to the stage now where I just think the hijackings run so deep that we need to start looking at moving away from it. I'll go more into that in a second, but
wow. Yes, so interesting. You said so much here, and I also just wanted to affirm what you were saying about the intuition, and because we have spoken about this before, like it's definitely, this is what I find really interesting, because I think when I stumbled into it on my path, I already had so much of a foundation, and this intuition and connecting to yourself is so important. And I feel like it always comes down to the foundation. It's like the basics, which is literally connecting with yourself. And then I didn't realize that, like, the world of psychedelics and plant medicine was like an avenue into the spiritual realm, or whatever you want to call it, But then I just realized that there's a whole thing going on there with that. But again, it's one of those things. It's like, you don't have to do it that way. You know what I mean? And I feel like sometimes it's blown out into this big way that this is the only way that you can, and it's just not true.
It's not. And that's what I was actually going to, when I talk about stepping away from it, because I know that's a really, as I said, a really big, bold statement to make, and will probably piss a lot of people off as well. People, especially people who are on their journey right now. But this is the thing, right? When I say this, it surprised me when it came through myself as well. But I was like, oh, okay, yeah, let's sit with that. Let's sit with what that means. But we're all on our journeys, and everyone's at different levels of their journey, and we're all going through our processes. So when I'm saying, like, I think we need to start to step away from it, this is not me saying to anybody, right, don't do it. If you do it, you're wrong, and this is bad, and step away now. It's not about that. It's about bringing this, as I said right at the beginning, they're bringing this consciousness into the field, so that, like you just said just then, like, people who are waking up for the first time, it's like, oh, ayahuasca, that's what you have to do first. It's starting to bring information into the field, so that people, when they do start to come and say, oh, maybe it's not what I have to do first, maybe there are other ways, and maybe I do need to sit and think about this a little bit more. Or for people who are already deeply in their ayahuasca journey, who are still respecting and honoring that and having a powerful time with that, but who might start to at some point feel something's not feeling right anymore, something's a bit icky, or I was working with that shaman and it felt dark, or I was aware of this dark energy that was there whilst I was drinking, or I've gone through this dark night of the soul after, and it feels like really freaking dark. Is it meant to be this dark? No, it's not. Like,
Yes.
This is the thing.
Yes.
And so many people now are having these dark nights of
Yes.
the soul, which they think are a result of the medicine, and it's not. I'm not saying we people won't have a dark night of the soul off the back of ayahuasca. That part of the point of ayahuasca is to send you into that place, into your shadow, to look at that stuff. But it's meant to be done with love and support and compassion and that evolution, that growth. I'm not saying it's not hard and difficult, but I'm seeing people going into ceremony who've been in a really good place, and they're coming out and they're like broken versions of themselves, and there's no support for them afterwards. And it's going through really dark journeys, which when I'm looking at them going like, that is not the journey that ayahuasca wanted to send you on. That's the journey that's from these dark energies that are now manipulating and controlling you, that people are being poisoned by these dark energies, by shamans who don't know how to hold space, and who've actually taken on these dark energies themselves. They're working through them unbeknownst to themselves. Again, it's not an attack. They don't know themselves. They think they're doing good themselves, but it's coming, and people are being poisoned in ceremony, not just ayahuasca, it's across different medicines as well. They're being poisoned in ceremony by these dark energies, and they assume, especially those who are drinking for the first time, they're assuming that this is normal, that this is how it's be, and it's not. And that's the reason when I'm starting to, we're having these conversations, and even we're having these conversations to say this isn't normal, start to have awareness. But as people go through their journeys and maybe start to feel, oh, something's not right, they can then sort of tap into what we're bringing in here. Is maybe it's time to step away. So it's not about saying everybody like listen, step away now. It's bringing it into the collective consciousness as a new understanding. People, because when we bring something into the collective consciousness, it starts to build more strength, more stealth. So the energy of more and more people talking about this and recognizing this and bringing it into that space of the collective consciousness, it has more stealth, it has more strength, and people can start to be naturally pulled in the direction of moving away from it, rather than being like we're trying to force people to make a decision. Now it's more of an energetic movement that will naturally take place the more people start to speak about this.
Love that. I feel like there's unpacking here with a few different things, and I have definitely felt that this weird, really, really dark energy in my ceremonies as well. And I feel like it took me to get to a stage where, because you were saying about the addictions and everything, if you are at that level where you have these addictions and I don't know, a certain level of awareness, you won't necessarily recognize the darkness that's coming in. Do you know what I mean? Because it's kind of where you are.
Absolutely.
But as soon as you are able to, move past it and grow on your own journey, then it becomes really obvious. And then you can start feeling, and then it's not normal anymore, because your not natural state of being is not there. So, and what you said here is so true, because I noticed that as well. It was like, it was just felt like this is what it's supposed to be like, but then it's like, hold on a minute, what if it isn't? Like, what is this? And obviously there is a level where, okay, take the lesson, what is it showing you know what I mean? But then that's kind of not what we're talking about.
Because divinity, like you say, divinity runs through everything. So I always say all roads lead to Rome. You've got the short and sweet roads, you've got the long and treacherous roads, and you've got all the roads in between. So if people are drinking ayahuasca and they are being affected in the way that we're talking about, at the end of the day, that road's still going to lead to Rome. You're still going to get to where you need to be. There is going to be the learning, the growth, the evolution through it. I always talk about, say, something like false light. False light is a vehicle to ascension, because there's still so much truth in the falsehoods, and there's more light in false light than there is in the darkness that we've come from. So we still grow through that false light. It's still part of the evolutionary process, the ascension process. And ayahuasca, whether we're having the good experiences or the bad experiences, it's still a process of evolution. But it's like, it could be that certainly right now, the way things are going with this this beautiful sacred medicine that I have so much respect for, but the way things that are going with it, with the hijacking that's taking place, it is now leading to people to walk on a much more treacherous, long, treacherous path to get to Rome, you know, rather than being able to go the other ways. But the divinity, it runs through everything. So there's no wrong or right in anything, you know, nothing's black or white. There's such a spectrum of colors that runs through everything. But as I say, it's the bringing of the awareness that maybe the road that you're choosing to walk right now has become more treacherous than what it was previously.
Yeah. So interesting. And then even what you were saying about the shamans, because I feel like even, I mean, I don't know, yeah, just gonna put this out there. Even someone who has trained their whole life, you know, I feel like it's still this, you know, like you were saying, their role is to protect the space from this, you know, those energies. But somehow I feel like even with those people, sometimes it still comes through, you know what I mean?
Well, they're not. I mean, this is it's a tough one to say, so I don't want to offend. Offend like shamans who've spent their whole life, their whole life in training. But I've drunk with different shamans, and I've drunk with the shaman I mentioned in Peru. There was incredible. He was amazing. I have full respect for him. But I've drunk with other real shamans who I have not felt safe with. I have not felt the space being held with. I felt their ego being very strong coming through. And there is, when I was in Peru, I was where the place that I drank in, it was run by an American guy. So it was a Peruvian shaman, but the center itself was run by an American guy. And because he had obviously access into the American market, so to speak, for people to come and drink, his center was more popular or more well known than some of the other centers that were around, and there was a lot of jealousy from the other shamans around the fact that he was getting more people coming in, and they were putting black magic onto his center. And that's something that I from what I understand is reasonably common in that space as well. So it's not all good, it's not all good, even with the well-trained. Somebody's putting black magic on somebody else. That is not a high level of consciousness, and that is not a space that I want to be sat in. Now, in 2012, I'd have sat in that space without question, because I was called to ayahuasca, and I was at the very, very early stages of my journey, having just left my career as a stockbroker and being very, very sick, and just being like, somebody help me, I just need help. And ayahuasca is what naturally came. I didn't know, I hadn't heard of it before, but I would have. I did still happily sit in that space, knowing that black magic had been spoken about. But obviously, as we said, the more you go on your journey, as you mentioned there, the more you go on your journey, the more you evolve, the higher your vibration becomes, the lighter you become.
Yeah.
Conscious you become, the more you sort of go,
yes.
what's that?
Yeah, totally.
That's exactly what we're speaking about here, is just to bring that into the consciousness, so that people who haven't reached that part yet, because they're still at the early parts of their journey, can start to just have a bit of an awareness that something more that you need to think about here.
Yeah, that was exactly it. All of a sudden you look back and you're like, hang on a minute, wait, what?
Yeah.
And the black magic thing is common, it's very common. But it's one of the things, just because it's normal doesn't mean that it's normal.
Exactly. It doesn't mean it's right. So it's just it's awareness. This is, we're all going through our processes, our journeys at different stages. And there are some people who are, some people were born to be leaders of this ascension process. So, those of us who were woken up early, who went through our processes earlier, our journeys earlier, we did that so that we could then, be a leader of the ascension process. And just to clarify, a leader, being a leader of the ascension process is not the same as being a leader of the old world, where it's totalitarian, dictatorial, dictatorial, telling people how they should live their lives. Being a leader of the new world, of the ascension process, there are many people leading the way in this ascension process. And we lead the way by being the best possible versions of ourselves, by doing the work and going on the journey to be the best possible version of ourselves, so that we can inspire other people to be the best possible version of themselves. And by doing that, we bring the new way of being into the collective consciousness as well. And as I mentioned, when enough of the leaders of the ascension are bringing that into the collective consciousness, it really helps the energetic field to speed up, so that people who are, you know, maybe at the earlier stages, as they're waking up and going through their journeys, they can be pulled more quickly into that energy, into that collective consciousness that has been created by those who have gone before them, so to speak. And on that note, there is something that I would like to say on that, because one thing that, you know, when it first came through me of, you know, we should start moving away from drinking ayahuasca, one of my challenging thoughts to my own self was, or argumentative thoughts to my own self was, yeah, but like, is it fair to take away that experience from somebody of, you know, this awakening that literally goes, wow, we're connecting to the fourth dimension, which many people have not knowingly had access to in this life. But the thing is, it is a birthright of every single one of us to be able to access those higher levels of consciousness, the higher realms, the astral realm, etc., etc. It is our birthright to be able to access that. But through our conditioning, our training, you know, all of that kind of in the world that the very dense world that we've been born into, for many, they've had that birthright taken away from them. It's been deconditioned. We've been taught that our imagination is just our imagination, and if anyone does happen to see anything, you know, beyond what is deemed as normal imagination, then you're deemed as crazy or what have you. So, you know, a lot of people have had that birthright taken away from them. Now, I didn't. I'm a dream weaver, so I am able to access those realms very easily through the dream state, and have done for my whole life. But I used to push it away, because I was like, I'm crazy. It's like, you know, if I'm seeing more, you know, that more in this physical realm, I'm bonkers, I'm crazy, something wrong with me, it's my imagination, what's, you know, all that kind of stuff. But that has been there for me for my whole life. And I used drugs. I used to push my natural ability to access those realms away, but would use drugs to access them, because that was normal. That you know, everyone else is doing that. Everyone else is accessing through drugs, so that's normal. The point being is that what I just said there about those of us who are maybe, and there are many leading the way through this ascension process, who are going into these spaces first, we are bringing all of this into the collective consciousness. So all of the people who have already drunk ayahuasca, who have had these experiences of accessing higher realms, have brought that into the collective consciousness. Dreamweavers like myself, who are already accessing those higher realms, we're bringing it into the collective consciousness. Those who can meditate and, you know, connect into those higher realms, we're bringing it into the collective consciousness. So at some point, a shift happens where ayahuasca isn't needed anymore to bring you to allow you to access those levels of consciousness, because it is in the collective consciousness. And we're already seeing people, like, as a dreamweaver, it's something, obviously, I speak about dreams a lot, or hear people speaking about dreams a lot. And I'm hearing, even just over this last, the eclipse, there were so many people who were talking about having lucid, vivid dreams that they've experienced before. It's because people are being activated, and that natural activation is coming from the collective consciousness, because those who've already been there have brought it in. So whilst, yes, you know, some people are still going to want to experience going through ayahuasca, but we are going to get to a point where we can remove that medicine and still have the capacity to connect to those levels of consciousness. And something else, like, something just to remind the viewers of, ayahuasca is I say it's a third and fourth dimensional medicine. So we are moving to fifth dimension. Humanity is moving to fifth dimension. We're moving from third to fifth dimension. Humanity as a whole. That's where we want humanity to get to fifth dimension, so that we can rise above the dark timelines of the AI, COVID stuff that paedophilia, all of that kind of stuff. We're looking to rise above that by getting humanity to fifth. But we have the capacity to keep going to higher dimensions, like 12th, 13th dimension. And that is a journey that we can choose to go on in this lifetime, or we can choose to stay in fifth. Whatever anybody's journey is their own, and it's their own choice. But ayahuasca is a lower vibration. It's a lower dimension than where we're looking to go to. So ayahuasca is a beautiful, beautiful sacred medicine that is helping to ignite us. It's helping to awaken us, to inspire us, to activate us into those higher levels of consciousness. But it is not the higher level of consciousness itself. We are. So we go and we drink the medicine to be activated, inspired to receive the messages, but we then have to go on that journey. We take that higher. Ayahuasca, we're not meant to be drinking ayahuasca over and over and over again. Receive the message, and then we embody the message. We get called back again later on, maybe once we've embodied the message, but to go back week after week, month after month, and continually be drinking this medicine, we're not really receiving the message. We're not embodying the message. We're just going back and asking for more. But we need to really embody what it is she's teaching us in the first place, and then we take ourselves above and beyond the medicine. And ayahuasca as a sacred conscious medicine, she knows this. She's not going to be offended by this. I've seen other people get offended on ayahuasca's behalf when I talk about this, but ayahuasca's not going to get offended by this. She knows who she is. She knows what she's here to do. She's here to activate, inspire, awaken our consciousness, but she's not here to hold our hand after week, month after month, year after year, throughout our entire lives. That is not what she's here to do. It's an experience we have, and then we grow and we move.
Oh yeah, I love what you're saying. I think so. First of all, basically you were saying that you were wondering if it was going to stop people from having that experience, but it's not, because ultimately we can have that experience basically naturally, and because other people are bringing it into our collective consciousness, the possibility is there. And I feel like that's also really important, which ties into what you said next, is basically realizing the tool that it is and what it is for. Because I think a lot of time people go into ceremony, like you say, you just do it, oh, it's calling, let's go, fine, follow your intuition. But again, it's like, hang on, what are we doing here and why? So then it's like exactly what you were describing there, this tool, it can open the doors, but take the message, this is,
you have to walk through, you have to use your own legs and walk through the door. You don't ask ayahuasca to move your leg for you. It's yes, like you said, a great analogy. She opens the door, but you have to walk through it. That's your journey to go on. And I feel like if ayahuasca keeps calling you back, ayahuasca has, if the medicine has its grips in you and keeps calling you back over and over again, you have to ask yourself what has its grips in the medicine. Because I do not believe that this is ayahuasca who is calling you back week after week or month after month. There's something darker that is running through, that wants you coming back over and over again, that wants to manipulate your energy, that wants to harvest your energy, that wants to poison you with its darkness, to get you following the path that the path that the darkness wants you to take, or the more of a false light type situation. Feeling that you're walking a spiritual path. You're taking ayahuasca, this medicine, it's spiritual, it's all good, but there's so much more. We've got to stop externalizing and looking for things outside of us. It's ayahuasca looking to get us back to our inner world, but if we keep drinking it, then that's externalizing. To what's within us.
It's so interesting. And even what you were saying about the darkness, that's another thing of just acknowledging that it's very real what's happening, the false light, everything, and it's okay as well. It's not like
yeah, totally. This is actually what one of the things I really talk about as well is I mentioned earlier false light. It's part the ascension process, a vehicle to ascension. We have to accept it as such because it is there. And, you know, all these traps have been laid for us by those who do not want us to ascend. So as we go, as we, you know, work our way through those traps, we are ascending through them, right? But the moment of real transcendence comes when we acknowledge the existence of true light in our experience, when we acknowledge that a medicine is no longer serving us. It doesn't mean that it hasn't served us up until now.
Yes, that's true.
It has been growth, you know, like I said, so it might have been a hard road, it might have been an easy road, but whatever way we went, the growth still exists, the growth exists, and the evolution exists with the false light practices as well. But the problem is we identify with the things that we've done. So we identify with drinking ayahuasca. We identify with all the different medicines, the titles we've received, the channelings that we've either done ourselves or heard from somebody else and identified with. We're identifying with all of these different things. Wherever we identify, the ego gets involved.
Yeah.
And this is where it's tricky, especially if you've already just been through, you know, or you know, I say just been through, it was potentially 10 years earlier that you went through a powerful awakening where, you know, the whole world had to crash around your ass because you know, we've seen the dark, ugly truth and we're like, oh my God, what's this world I've been living in? And our egos had to crash then, our whole world had to crash, our identities have crashed. And that was, you know, for anyone who's been through an awakening like that, it's a very, very difficult process to go through. But what we need to remember, and I think this is something that people don't realize a lot, there isn't just one awakening. We awaken over and over and over again. Some are massive and some are small, but we're constantly awakening. So it can be very challenging for somebody who's been through that big awakening and watched everything crash and their egos crash. They've picked themselves up, they've rebuilt themselves, and they've rebuilt themselves in this spiritual community.
Yes.
Not their medicines, and they've become a healer and whatever else it may be. You know, I include myself in this, of course, as well, you know. But so our egos become strong again, and we're identifying with all of that. And then somebody comes in and says, yeah, but that medicine you're drinking, it's hijacked now, and you know that you know, that spiritual teaching that you've been looking at, and yeah, it's false light. You know, that is really, really freaking hard for people to take. So what happens at that point is people's egos take a hold. They refuse to acknowledge the experience of, you know, the like false light being part of their experience, or they refuse to acknowledge that maybe that beautiful medicine that has brought them so much growth is now being hijacked, and they get stuck in that place. But the moment of transcendence is when you can say, okay, I acknowledge it. I acknowledge that false light exists. I acknowledge that there's been false light in my experience. I acknowledge that the medicine that I've been drinking maybe isn't as beneficial for me as it was before, or that it has been hijacked. I acknowledge it, and I'm prepared to let it go, you know, in my bid to connect solely with the true light. And it's like, it's in that moment that true transcendence takes place. And you have to be, you know, at that moment, you have to be ready and willing and able to let go of all of those things that you identify with. You have to be ready and willing to allow the ego to be smashed again. But by doing that, that is when you can transcend into the truth, into the true light. And as I say, you do it with that open heart and that gratitude for all that your journey has brought you, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the false light, the darkness, all of it, you know, because it's all part of the ascension process. It's all part of our ability to transcend, and that's what we're here to do.
So true.
Let the ego go on this subject. Like, let it go. It's hard. I'm not saying it's not, because we know those who have, you know, received so much growth and abundance and evolution from the medicine are going to find it hard to hear this. I would have heard it hard to hear myself speaking right now a few years ago. You know, if you told me, you know, I've said for a very long time, you know, choose your shaman wisely. But if you told me that I'd start to be talking in this way, like we need to start moving away, and you know, it's being deeply hijacked, my ego would have been offended, because I had so much growth from the medicine. But we're not here to serve our ego. We're here to serve our soul, to serve humanity, to grow and transcend. So yeah, we need to start letting the ego go, and recognizing that our identity is not what medicine we've drunk, or what the journey is that we've been on. Our identity is is who we truly are inside. So the people that we're becoming through the journeys that we've been on.
And I think that's a few things that you said. Obviously being grateful for the process anyway, and like actually being grateful for what you have learned, because I think sometimes it's very easy to just cancel and go no, but as you said, no, we take it all with us. And really what it is, I think, from this conversation is that it's just heightening discernment even more, tuning in to feeling what are these energies, and what you were saying earlier about the entities and everything as well. I kind of wanted to unpack that a bit. So, because I feel like, that is obviously just something that is very real. Obviously, not many people know that. But then, so the entities, and you also said earlier about, the dimension that is open to us when we take the plant medicines. Because, like you said as well, it's not just ayahuasca, it's the dimensional thing. Again, this is something that's very unclear. Not many people talk about, where's the clarity with that? And then also what you were saying with, we're going to the fifth dimension. Obviously, this is the process. So when you know that, then you can, act accordingly as well.
This is true.
So the entity thing, I feel like this is such a big thing for us now, like moving forwards. So do you want to just explain what they are, like in your understanding?
Yeah, sure. So we look at, I tend to umbrella everything under entities, but I'm gonna anything that's dark energy is an entity. But no, I'm gonna separate it, because what we have is entities which are kind of lost souls, or dark energy that's developed a consciousness of its own, and they entities that feed on our insecurities, on our fears, on our worries, all of that kind of stuff, our addictions, as I said earlier. Now, entities themselves, they're bothersome, but they're not the end of the world. I think when people hear that we have these entities that are feeding, they can get a bit like scared or panicked or whatever, which is only going to feed the entity more. So we don't want to do that. But entities, like we've all had them for our whole lives, and many lives before that, because every anything that's unhealed from a previous life, we bring through into the next life to be able to work on healing it in the next life as well. So these entities are just, they're there. Babies have entities. It's quite scary to think that, but babies are born with their past life. They're still a soul of everything that they've ever been, so they bring through the fears, the insecurities that they have from previous lives as well. So even children, even babies have entities, and that just happens. So we all have them. I call them like our own personal demons, if you like. Now they're bothersome, but the more we do our healing, the more we let go of them. If you heal an addiction, then those addictive spirits and entities, they can't feed on that addiction anymore. But they are bothersome in the fact that when you're trying, if you have an addiction, they're very much like, drink more, take more drugs, do more of this, feed me more. So we have a lot of that. So it can be challenging when we have these entities around us, because it can be very difficult to heal the things that we're trying to heal, or let go of the addictions that we're trying to let go of, because they're trying to be fed more. They want more of that fearful energy, or that addictive energy. So we have those entities. But we also have the other thing that I speak a bit about is it's more like a spirit invasion. So these are, I mentioned earlier, we've got some of these beings, these higher beings that don't want us to ascend. Some of them can be up to like the 11th dimension, like high level dimension. So they're very high level beings. They're very clever, very intellectual. They probably know a lot more about the universe than we in our current state of being know. So they are the things that are more dangerous to us. Like the entities, you know, whatever. There are demons that we've always had, heal themselves, and you know they'll disappear. There is an unfortunate thing of people not knowing what to do with the entities when they're being healed, so they're being released. And this is what we're seeing a lot of as well at the moment through the ascension processes. People are doing their healing, the entities are getting released, but they're not being sent anywhere. So they're just floating around the ether looking for somebody else to feed on. So this is why again it's becoming more and more dangerous in the ayahuasca circles and ceremonies, because they're just there looking for a host, you know, looking for somebody else to attach to. But yeah, we have the high level, like sort of spirit, I can't remember what I call those, but like spirit invasion, where these are like high level beings that are trying to stop us ascending. So they are the ones that are coming through and working through the Havago shamans, through the healers. So because it's not just medicine again, it's like normal healing, it's channeling. There's so many different things. That doesn't mean that every healer is channeling something bad, that every channeler is channeling something bad, like you say about the cancel, you know, the culture. There's many incredible beings that people are channeling, that you know, that are genuinely coming through for our, you know, for the good of our ascension. But there are those that are coming through that don't want us to ascend, as I said, and so they are coming through in the, you know, they're working through the Havago shamans, and yeah, they are really quite dangerous, because they're very clever, they're very dark, they're very strong, and they are out and out here to screw with our ascension process, to
confuse us,
to trick us. Yeah, exactly. And that's what we've both said so many times. This is where we have to move back to our discernment, where we have to train our intuition, because when you do that, you can tell.
You can tell.
You can feel it. You can sense it. Something doesn't sound right. Something doesn't sit right. It's like something's off. You can tell. But if you haven't trained your intuition and discernment, and if you haven't listened to conversations like this, so you don't know that the spiritual community has been hijacked, you're just going to take everything that anyone said at face value. A channeler's channeled it, therefore it must be true. This person's a healer, therefore they're going to heal me. But yeah, we really have to be aware now that this hijacking is very real.
Yeah, totally.
We have to train on intuition. We have to.
Yeah. And so the way I understand the entity as well, they're like, it's kind of like lost souls who didn't pass over when they died. So it's kind of like they attach onto, is it like physically in your body, but also like your energy body?
Yeah, in your energy body. Yeah. So, for example, if a soul who's passed on is, say they still have addictions, so you know, alcoholism or drugs or anything like that, if they still have those addictions, they will want to attach to people who have those addictions, because the energy of the person in the physical addiction will feed their own addiction energetically as well. So you'll find, you know, there'll be, if you go to the party scene is the perfect one to talk about, you know, and I'm, you know, I've partied for probably 30 years. I'm it's only this year that I've just been like, no more. And actually the last couple of weeks I've actually been like, oh, I can go to a party. So believe me, I'm not judging parties, anyone who goes to a party or anything like that. It's been in my blood for I'd say about 30 years. But you know, when people are at parties, they're taking drugs, they're drinking alcohol. There's usually a reason for people taking drugs and alcohol that goes above and beyond just wanting to have fun. Yes, we all want to have fun, but it is possible for us to do that without drugs and alcohol, especially when we've, you know, done the healing in ourselves. I've been sober now for 4 years, and I think I stopped taking drugs maybe 6 years ago or something like that, and was still going to parties and still having a great time sober. Had to do a lot of healing in myself to get me there, you know, to be able to be in that environment without the use of drugs and alcohol. So yeah, but of course there is an element of, we want to have fun, we want to get out of our head. But why are we getting out of our head? Why do we need to get out of our head? There's a reason for that, right? So we all have we all have it. We've been born into a shitty world where we've been conditioned, into being so much less than what we actually are, and believing we're free when we're not, and all of that kind of stuff. So we all have it. We all have this stuff, and we all have the entities. But when you go to somewhere like a party, you've got a whole room of people who are all taking drugs and drinking alcohol, who are all going to have their own insecurities and their own fears and their own worries. And so you're going to have a whole lot of entities that are hanging out there, knowing that they're going to have fresh hosts to feed on. And of course, people are going in with their own entities anyway that are already attached to them. And then you've got the entities that maybe don't have hosts that are all hanging out in that space, going, oh, just wait till later when the club kicks off, we're going to have a whole load of bodies here that we can click sort of click onto. So that they're everywhere. There'll be gambling entities will be in gambling joints. It's like wherever there is a place where many people congregate with that kind of addiction, then the entities will be hanging out there, just waiting to pounce, so to speak.
And so that ties in with the plant medicine, because basically when you go to that, I feel like we interpret it as going to the astral realm, right?
Yes.
With plant medicine.
Yeah. So many entities exist in the astral realm. So when we drink plant medicine, we're opening ourselves up to that astral realm. And as I said before, there's a lot of beauty and incredible things to see in the astral realm. It's where I spend a lot of my time as a dream weaver. I'm going into the astral realm a lot. So I've spent my whole life being very connected to that realm. But it's still a low level realm. That's not 11th, 12th, 13th dimension. It's fourth dimensional. So it's still a lower level realm where there are still a lot of heavy things that can exist there. I mean, as a dream weaver, I've seen my whole life, I've seen some really, really dark things that have come through to me in that realm. Very dark demonic stuff, way more than just your addictive entity. Some really, really dark things, which I've had to learn to handle over the years. But that ability or that experience has allowed me to become stronger to it, but also to recognize it very, very easily as well. So I see these dark demonic creatures working through the shamans, the healers, the medicine givers. I can see it. Not through all of them, of course. I don't want to suggest that every healer or every medicine man or woman or shaman has dark entities or demonic energies working through them. That's not the case, but I can see where it does exist. It's very easy for me to see where it does exist. And when I see it, they attack me because they don't like that the entities or the dark energies themselves attack me because they don't like that I'm seeing them. So I've had to learn to be very, very strong to that, and to learn to really, really protect myself against what can come through. And as I say, if I'm seeing this in people who are serving you your medicine, you don't want that in your ceremony when you're opening up and becoming vulnerable. Because if you think about it, anybody who's drunk ayahuasca, you're here in this third dimension, you are somewhere else very quickly, in another reality very quickly. Like there are people who may not make it to the toilet because they're so sort of detached from their physical body that they've opened to the astral realm. So if you're in that vulnerable state of being, you do not want somebody serving you your medicine who has these very, very dark energies working through them. You're not protected. You're not safe. It's dangerous. It's like I have to really express that. It's become really, really dangerous. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this is a separate part to the topic, because now, you know what I mean? It's opened another bag where it's like, okay, the entities this is real. This is what's happening in the ceremony. It's not just about the plant medicine, whatever it is. Because
when we talk about this is, but I've said many times on this podcast, I have full respect for ayahuasca the medicine. This
Mm.
is not about ayahuasca the medicine. It's about what's happening
What? Yeah.
through ayahuasca the medicine now as part of this hijacking. So the medicine itself, beautiful. There are many people, I mean, I think there are many people who will, there's probably people who can talk scientifically about how it may negatively affect the body, and there'll be people who can have those conversations. I don't know that stuff. That's not my forte at all. And I'm sure there will be arguments for why the medicine itself might not be as beneficial as people think it is, and that would be somebody else's topic. Potentially you're interviewing somebody on that topic.
I will be, yeah. But
yeah.
do you feel like that resonates with you? Just quickly.
Do I feel like that the
yeah,
what I just said?
yeah.
Yeah, what you just said. Yeah, I do. I do feel like it resonates, but I also think there's a lot of power in doing it as well. So I think I think anything in moderation, right? So if you're going through an awakening and this beautiful plant medicine can help you through that process, if you're really listening to the calling of the plant, being able to discern that from the now hijacking where you're potentially being called by the darker energies and entities instead of the plant itself, if you're able to discern that, the plant isn't going to call you to drink over and over and over again. So you just drink a handful of times over a few year period, then potentially, the damage that can be done, again, I don't know the science behind that.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But potentially that can be negated, or it's maybe not such a big deal, or we can, you can work your way through that, or your body can regenerate, or whatever. I don't know the science. But yeah, when people are drinking over and over and over again, then of course, there is going to be some damage, and it's bringing it back to the balance of that. But yeah, from the perspective that I'm speaking about with the plant, it's not about the medicine itself. It's about what's happening. It's the hijacking. It's what I'm calling the ayahuasca hijack. It's that hijacking that's taking place where dark energies are now working through the medicine. Dark energies are working through the Havago shamans. Dark energies are creating more and more Havago shamans by telling them in the ceremony that they should be a shaman or a medicine man or woman. Drawing them to the low level training centers, as I said before. I mean, there's a Kambo training center in the UK that you can train to be a Kambo shaman in 2 days.
Wow.
2 days to serve frog poison to somebody. Like, for me, that's not enough time to even know how to initiate the medicine. So maybe you've learned it, but are you truly skilled in it? Are you truly confident? Could you screw that up? Yeah, I think you could. Would you know what to do if you screwed it up? Probably not. So even in the administering of the medicine, 2 days isn't enough. But that's without even looking at how to hold the space and looking at the person who's serving the medicine themselves and being like, are you ready to hold space for this? Have you held enough space for yourself yet? Have you been deep enough into your own journey where you have, healed like large parts of your trauma? Of course, we're always healing. The journey of self never ends. I've been doing shadow work for 20 years and I'm still at it every night in my dreams, So it's not that, but there has to be a reasonable amount of work done on somebody who is holding space for other people to heal. So yeah, have they done enough of that work? Have they released enough trauma that they don't have addictive trauma entities around them? Have they released enough? Have they mastered their addiction so they don't have a whole load of addictive entities around them? Because if they've got that around them and then they're not holding the space for other people, it's just like a what would you call it? A mosh pot? I don't know, like a moshy mesh pot. This dark energy just all being swapped around everybody. It's not a clean, clear, hygienic space that is held for people to come into and then open up to other dimensions, to other realms, to so that's where I'm at. It's about the hijack itself rather than the medicine.
I mean, I love what you have shared, and there are so many different aspects to it, because I feel like yeah, what you said, it's about what's happening. Obviously, there is the important part of, this being very cautious with who you're working with, which is kind of like the standard, everybody knows this, you know what I mean? But then there's also the other stuff that you're talking about that comes into it as well that isn't necessarily being spoken about. And
Yeah.
I feel like the other thing that I love as well, and Jason mentioned this as well in the previous episode, it's just like I feel like it's not spoken about, how often are you supposed to do it and for how long? And I feel like what you said as well is like, the point is to stop. The point is to stop. And someone said this, and I don't know if it was you, but like, it's not a medicine if you have to keep going back. You know what I mean? If you have to keep doing it.
Well, I guess that's the thing, like the medicine of the modern day, pharmaceutical world. That's
Yes.
what you take that for the rest of your
Yes.
life. So
Oh,
that's the thing. That's the conditioning. Oh, that's fine. We just keep taking ayahuasca.
that's
But
the
no,
conditioning.
yeah, Mother Aya is here to help us to grow beyond her. Her consciousness is what it is. She is here to help us grow beyond her consciousness, to move into the higher dimensions that we don't have access through ayahuasca. I know a lot of people think that we do. Personally, what comes through me with my own conscious understanding is that we're accessing we can access higher dimensions, but we're doing it through the fourth dimensional astral realm rather than actually accessing those dimensions. So it's always like we're having a view into those other dimensions, but we're not actually in those dimensions.
Yeah.
And for us to reach those dimensions, we have to embody the teachings, we have to embody the messages, the work, that's a journey. That's the journey into self. That's a real long journey. And that is not something that ayahuasca is there to hold our hand through. As I said before, she is to a degree, but her work is to move us beyond her, to move beyond the medicine. Yeah, it's but yeah, I think that we end up getting, it's because we're externalizing. As I said, we're all looking for the answers outside. And you actually brought up to me, you told me the Alan Watts quote. I hadn't heard it before. Yeah, what was it like?
So good.
So in relation to psychedelic drugs, medicine, etc., what was it like? If you've got the message, hang up the phone, right?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
And it's so perfect in terms of what we're speaking about here, because like she's giving
once you receive the message,
hang up the phone, go away, process the message. Don't keep asking for another message over and over again. Don't keep asking. Because what are you going back for? And I think you said that at the beginning there, you have to question that. You have to ask, what am I here for? Why am I here? What is the point of this? The point is always for evolution and growth, but at some point you have to take responsibility for your own evolution and growth. You can use tools to get you somewhere, but if you're not going beyond those tools, then you are staying in the vibration or in the consciousness of those tools, rather than moving beyond that into your own higher levels of consciousness, because we have the capacity to access much higher levels of consciousness. So
so the integration, as you mentioned before as well, is obviously like the most important part of the ceremony, which a lot of people, I guess, don't really get support on, and if they haven't done the foundational work themselves, then they might struggle with it. But what you're saying here as well, again, it's get the message and then go away with it. But at the same time, what you were just describing now is, we can use the tools, but then at the point is we have to stop using the tool, basically, and that tool that we're going to use then is us, and we are the ones that can access those higher states of consciousness just naturally, just through, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Experiencing ayahuasca, it is life-changing, but it's life-changing because she gives you the tools to change your life.
Oh,
be the one to go and do that work, not going back again asking her to change your life over and over again. And that's a bit of a trap that I think people have got caught in.
I love that. Yes it feels like a little cycle that's trapping people. Yes.
Yeah.
It's so true. That was powerful. So amazing. Thank you so much. I feel like we've been speaking about this for a little while, really, but it's good to just
it's taken a while to be able to do this, hasn't it? It's been my fault. I know I've had a lot going on, but really, really happy to be here and to be talking about this subject, and really grateful to you for holding the space for this to happen as well. I know you're doing a series of this subject, which I think is amazing, because it's it's different viewpoints. As I said earlier, I can't talk about the scientific side about it, but somebody else can bring that, and people listening to me might not get my language. They might just be like, what is this talking about? But they may then listen to this another person, another guest who can talk in a more scientific way, and they're like, boom, got it. So having so many different people talking about it, I just think it's brilliant that you're doing that to bring different viewpoints on the same subject across. But also, like I was saying earlier, the more people who are talking about this, the more it comes into the collective consciousness, and the more people will naturally just start to be pulled into that evolutionary way of thinking. It is evolutionary. It was evolutionary to start doing ayahuasca in the first place, but we're constantly evolving, we're constantly growing, and the ascension process is taking us higher and higher. So this is a new evolutionary way of looking at that process.
Yeah, totally. And even like you're saying, you with your dream weaving, you're doing it that anyway. You know what I mean?
I can go, I often joke saying I can just go into a meditation and I can end up on a 3-hour mushroom trip in my own mind, minus the mushrooms. I might just go in, I'm just planning on doing a 10-minute meditation, and come around 3 hours later and I've been off, and I haven't been asleep, I've just been in meditation, but I've been off seeing all kinds of stuff in all different sort of, the kind of stuff that you see when you take mushrooms or ayahuasca. It's something that I do very, very naturally now. Now, I had the capacity to do that when I was young, but I blocked it all out because it wasn't normal. And I took drugs to go on that journey. I took ayahuasca to go on that journey, and taking ayahuasca has helped me to reopen to that ability that I already had. It's helped me to re-access that ability that I already had. As I say, it's a birthright. It is our birthright to be able to access that, but we've had that birthright taken away from us by being born into this dense realm, that we've been born into. So yeah, it's time for us to start accessing that again, and we can do it naturally. And those who have been before us, so to speak, or who have already been on this journey, drinking ayahuasca or what have you, we've brought it into the collective consciousness. So everybody has to go there now, and they can still have that same experience. That's it's the opening the mind to it. But the more that the more people start to have that experience. So there'll be people drinking ayahuasca right now who will then move into the space where they can access it on their own. The more people that move into that space where they can access it on their own, the more that will be spoken about. The more the people waking up for the first time or starting to come into this realm for the first time will hear about that, and will start to believe that they can access it by themselves without the need for ayahuasca, and then they'll be pulled into the collective consciousness's created ability to be able to do that, or to be able to access it. And it will just spiral in the same way we've seen vegetarianism and veganism back in 2012, 2013. There's a lot of people who joke saying, oh, you're jumping on the bandwagon of vegetarianism or whatever. But it's not jumping on the bandwagon. It's being pulled into the energy of the collective consciousness. The more people who started to get that feeling of like, and that was just energetic. It was early 2013 for me, I think, when I became vegetarian, not vegan, but vegetarian. And I didn't know anyone else who was doing that. I just energetically was like, I just don't want to eat meat anymore. It just didn't feel good for me anymore. So I made that choice by myself, and more different people were making that choice across different parts of the world. Comes into the collective consciousness. A year later, you've got thousands more people doing it. 8 years later, McDonald's are serving a veggie burger. Like it's there now. It's there for people to step into and naturally be pulled into, and that is what's going to happen with the ability to be able to connect to higher realms. Without the need for drugs and medicine.
Yeah, and alcohol in it.
Well, alcohol does the opposite. I think it suppresses you even more from connecting to higher realms. Keeps you very much in this dimension, I think.
I think, yeah, this is it. I think even like when we sleep, we're traveling to the astral realm. So it just feels like sometimes it's just this forgetting of how powerful we are, you know.
Absolutely.
And
We are more powerful than the medicine. She knows that. She will not be offended by that. She wants us to remember how powerful we are. She wants us to move beyond her, as I said before. So yeah, it's just recognizing that she will give us the tools to help to get us there. But yeah, it's up to us to use those tools wisely.
But it's interesting as well because I wonder what it is for the shamans because you know I mean I'm going to be speaking to Corey. I think he will go into a bit more details about how it might not be so good for the body. But yeah, because obviously shamans they do it a lot more frequently. You know?
Yeah, that was something that I definitely did question
It's
when I first
interesting.
drank. Was like you're literally drinking like every other day, mate. Some of them, you know, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
every other day. It's like, wow, that's a lot. So yeah, I'd be really interested to hear
Yeah.
what Corey says on that subject.
And then just quickly because you were talking about alcohol, I just wanted to speak about that a bit as well. Because I know there was one point where you were also microdosing with mushrooms, but then you kind of you stopped it all, right?
Yeah, I don't touch anything anymore. So, because we also see this with mushrooms as well, right? You know, everyone's partying on mushrooms now.
Yeah.
So it started for me in 2015. I wanted to move away from taking chemicals like drugs, but was still very much, you know, enjoying the party scene. So I started to use mushrooms as an alternative to chemicals. I think I went to Burning Man and did the whole burn with just mushrooms and I was drinking alcohol at that time as well. I think I tried it with alcohol and I was just like, oh no, this is too much, like one step at a time. But back then, I mean, obviously people were doing mushrooms in Burning Man, but it would be like they'd go and have a day exploring on mushrooms, and then the rest of the time they're probably doing chemicals. I didn't know anyone else who was just using mushrooms as a way to party instead of using chemicals. There would have been
Yeah,
other people
yeah,
at the
yeah.
same time as me in different parts of the world, but I didn't know anyone. And so what's happened? So for me, what's happened is that was again a beautiful tool that allowed me to recognize that I still need to get out my head a little bit, but recognize that I could be in that space without the need for chemicals. It sent me on a journey of I would take mushrooms and drink alcohol, and then stop with the chemicals, and then I think I was just drinking alcohol and having a coffee to keep me straight, and then moved into going sober, and then I was drinking cacao to keep me awake whilst I parted. So abusing the cacao and abusing the mushrooms because you know they're medicines. But that was the beauty of the medicine, is that as a medicine it allowed me to go on a journey where I am now 100% sober, and I can still be in party environments, but well, energetically, vibrationally, I'm finding it a little bit harder these days. But you know, I could still happily go to a party, dance my socks off all night, be around everybody else, banter with everybody else, but could do that sober. And it was the mushrooms that allowed that healing to take place. But again, like I said, when I first did ayahuasca, and it was 2012, it was not commonplace. It was not popularized. Therefore, it hadn't been hijacked. When I was doing mushrooms in 2015, for maybe a year or two after, it wasn't commonplace. We were bringing it into the collective consciousness again. So this is what's happened now. Now taking mushrooms instead of chemicals is now in the collective consciousness. And look at the pool that's happened. Look how many. There's people in DC. I live in Ibiza. There's people in DC 10 who used to be that stood there, you know, next to the DJ box, shoving cocaine up their nose. Now they're all on mushrooms, you know, and drinking their water. Amazing that this is happening in the collective consciousness, and people are starting to go on that same shift and that same journey that I went on, which was incredibly healing, and I'm very grateful for. But because it's become popularized, it's becoming hijacked again. And this is what I think, it's such an easy hijack. As I said, the same for ayahuasca. It's a really easy hijack with the mushrooms as well, because people are using them to replace an addiction, as was I. But the more people who move into that space, the more popularized it becomes. They're going into clubs where entities are everywhere, the more it's becoming hijacked very, very easily. So yeah, even being around mushrooms now, for me, I don't take mushrooms anymore. I haven't done for several years. But even when I'm around people with mushrooms, I'm like, I can see what's there, and it's not the mushroom itself. I have so much gratitude to the mushrooms for allowing me to go on a journey or helping me to go on a journey. Obviously I went on that journey myself, but the mushrooms helped me to go on that journey of moving away from a very chemically induced background, and to move into being sober. I've got so much gratitude for the medicine of that, but now, because it's popularized, it's just becoming hijacked again. And it's so difficult to be like those of us who woke up or who had these experiences early. It's very difficult to go through those journeys because you're on your own. As I said, there will be other people around the world who are doing it at the same time, who are helping to bring it into the collective consciousness, but we don't know them. We're in our own individual space, surrounded by all our friends who think we're bonkers, and we feel very alone, and it feels like we're going through this journey on our own. The next few levels of awakening, the next few the next few waves of people, it's probably maybe a little bit easier because they maybe had it was starting to come into the collective consciousness. They maybe had people around that they knew had already gone through it, so they had somebody to talk to, and it hadn't yet been hijacked. But what's happening now for the people who are waking up, in the last couple of years, maybe, or having these experiences in the last couple of years, yes, they've got a lot of people around them who they can talk to and who are understanding, but what they've got is a very, very hijacked community that they're waking up into. Hijacked medicines, hijacked teachings, hijacked healings. They're waking up into a really messy space. A really messy space. But for that, again, I just want to bring it back to that same thing. It's why it's so important to strengthen your intuition, discernment, because the only way people are going to get through this, navigate their way through this messy hijacked space, is if they strengthen their intuition and use their discernment.
I mean, it makes sense what you're saying. It just makes complete sense. Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing. So I just wanted to I feel like this word hijack is something that was thrown around quite a lot, maybe the past year and a half or something, you know what I mean? And what it ended up doing, from what I saw, was just sending people into a lot of fear.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously not just that, but coming to the recognition of this darkness and the fact that, certain beings don't want us to go through this ascension, that can also perpetuate fear. And even maybe this conversation to some people might even, send some people into a state of fear. And to be honest, this is just where we are right now. And even what you were saying with the hijacking and the really dark energies that come through in the ceremonies, sometimes it's also the reality to it, you know what I mean? To a degree of what is going on.
Yeah, there's a big difference between awareness and fear. And obviously it's very easy to go into the fear, but when you have awareness, it's awareness of what is. So not having awareness doesn't mean it's not happening. It just means you're not aware of it.
Yes.
When you have the awareness, then you have the tools, then you have the ability, the capacity to say, okay, well, let's make different decisions. Like, what do I want to do about this? We have to see it. We have to see the dark. It's the same as when we first wake up from from our world, from our society, from the matrix. Thank you. When we first see that dark, ugly truth, we have to see that. But you don't have to stay sat in it. You don't have to perpetuate fear, it's your choice. Now, don't get me wrong, part of the process is probably to be in it for a period of time, and we do, when I first started seeing everything, I was trying to wake everybody else up and and we all do it, and we watch it now. It's a part of the
part.
It has to be acknowledged. And the thing is, those of us who have further along in that process, we might look at somebody who's trying to shake somebody else awake, be like, oh, come on, guys, settle down, like it's annoying. But then we have to say, well, we were that, yes, settle down, but we were that person. We were annoying the people who woke up before us because we were trying to shout about.
Totally. I went through that phase.
We all have, it's a process. The ascension is a process, and you can't skip steps in the process either.
Yes.
Skipping steps, then there's a big gap in your own evolution. If you're skipping steps, you're potentially spiritually bypassing. You're not looking at your own stuff. And if you have got fear from this conversation, that's okay. Sit in it. Sit in that fear for a while. Why is it making you fearful? What is it about this conversation that is making you fearful? Because that is going to tell you a lot about where you're at, what's coming up for you, what's going on in your own psyche, in your own journey. And that's important stuff to look at. And when you can look at that, then you can start to transcend it. When you can have the awareness of it, you can start to move beyond it, and you can start to move through it. But you might have to sit in that for a little while. But as I say, awareness is always key. And the fact that you might not be aware of it until you've heard this or any other conversation that's happened doesn't mean that things aren't happening. It just means that you're not seeing it yet. So yeah, we've just got to accept that, I think, as part of the process. Yeah,
definitely. So what just in general, because I feel like this is like one of the biggest things that we're dealing with as a collective, is just how to come to peace with the darkness that's happening in the world. and I feel like this conversation is totally a part of that.
Yeah, I think, and it's, I think for anything, everything always comes back, for me, it always comes back to just doing your own healing, going on your own journey, doing your own healing, because the more you heal, the more at peace you naturally become in your own self. So we just spoke about fear there. If you're sitting in fear of everything that's going on in the world, well, what is going on in you that is making you fearful? Of course, we're getting, especially if you're sitting in the truther community and you're getting all this stuff thrown at you constantly. I mean, it is hard not to, it's like, whoa, okay, like the world is literally going to shit. And it is going to shit. But, that's a good thing. That's a freaking good thing, because the world has been really shit for a really long time. It's very corrupt out there, in case people haven't noticed. Very corrupt. So we want that to go to shit. We want the world that we've been living in to go to shit. We want it to fall around and crash around our ankles, so that we can rebuild it into the new world that we actually want to create, a world that is fair for all, and we're all here to do that. That is part of our evolution as well. We're all here to create this new world. But how do we do that? How do you create a new world? How do you change the world? By going on your own healing journey, and we change it by one individual healing journey at a time. And when we all go on our own individual healing journey, we come collectively together in this new world that we've naturally created by changing ourselves. And this is what we have to do. So it always comes back to our own individual healing. If you're in fear, what are you fearful of? If you're I don't know, if you've got insecurities or self-doubt, what is that? Just sitting in that, doing your own shadow work. Because the more you do that, the more you heal, the more you let go of the heavy baggage that is holding us in this lower vibrational state. The more we let go of that, the more we rise, the more we ascend, the more at peace we become with ourselves. The more at peace we become with ourselves, the more we sort of look at the external again, because we're going more into our own internal wealth. And when we're in our internal wealth, we can look at the external craziness and see it for the external craziness that it is, and say, hey, that's there, it exists, but it's not affecting me. I'm not involved in that. That's chaos. I'm not living in a state of chaos. That's a state of chaos that has been collectively created by us all being conditioned to be chaotic, to be living in stress, etc., etc. What we see in the world today is the collective creation of that. But now we're going to collectively create something else. So be in your own individual state of peace, and that will go out to the world to create a more peaceful world. There's actually something that just came to me then, like an ayahuasca ceremony that I did many years ago. I just lost my dad. It must have been 2015. I didn't feel every ayahuasca ceremony I've done, I've been called to. I've drank 10 times, but it was like 5 times that first time in Peru for 2012. And then I drank a handful of times in 2018 when I was called again. But in 2015, I wasn't called to drink ayahuasca. A friend of mine was doing a retreat in Ibiza, and I was just like, I just really want to go and be on this retreat with my friends in Ibiza. So I came and I drank, and it was like it was I knew I wasn't meant to be drinking. It was not a calling. So anyway, I just lost my dad, and I went through. Oh, it was horrible. It was a really, really hard ceremony that I went through. The shaman called it a day. I think there was some noise or something happened, and the shaman. Oh no, somebody came down to make soup in the kitchen, so that we'd have soup when we were ready, when we were finished. And it was very noisy, and the shaman decided that that was it. He was going to end the ceremony, but we were only maybe like 2 or 3 hours into the ceremony, so I was really, really deep into the medicine. And everybody got up and was talking around me, and I was like, oh my god, it really is like it's like I'm in Ibiza. I'm not in Peru now, am I? I'm in Ibiza. Someone's making soup in the kitchen. Everyone's up talking like it's like I'm at a party, and I literally like really lost my head. I had to get somebody to carry me to my bedroom, and I was in the medicine for something like another 5 or 6 hours, and it just kept telling me to learn this same lesson. I was like, all right, I get it, but just let me out. I get it. And it's like, nope, not until you've learned the lesson. I was like, I've learned the lesson. Like, nope, not until you learn the lesson. I was stuck in this
Loop.
horrible
I've been stuck in a loop as well.
loop. Yeah, a loop for almost such a long time. Anyway, the message that I was getting was when and this is what came up as a result of everybody being around me being crazy. Yeah. I'm like deep in my space. When the world around you is losing its head, you have to keep your center.
Yeah.
So that was the message. And at the time, I didn't really get it because I just lost my dad, and I had done so well with that. I'm a medium, so I know that life exists beyond this reality. My dad, the day my dad died, he came to me in my dream and told me he was okay and he'd gone home. I communicate with my dad all the time, so I'd done so well in the grieving process, and I lived with my dad for a year whilst he had stage 4 brain cancer. It was horrendous. It was a very difficult experience, but I really held my center throughout this whole experience. So I could not understand why I had to go through so much in that ceremony for that message. And of course, I blamed myself, going like, well, you knew you weren't called to it. That's why you've got that kick in the ass. But anyway, after of course COVID hits, 2020 hits, and the world is losing its head, that message was suddenly so relevant. I was like, oh my God, when the world around you is losing your head, hold your center. And I was able to hold my center because I'd grown from that message. Even though I didn't fully understand it at the time, I had grown and evolved from that experience, so that when 2020 hit, I had the capacity to be able to hold my center when the world around me was losing its head. And that's where we need to be getting to. That's what part of the
totally
process is. Yes, it's crazy out there, but hold your center.
Yeah.
People who hold the center, the less crazy it gets. So
yes. Wow. You know what's so interesting? I remember you telling me about that ceremony before, actually, but it's amazing to now like hear the integration, I guess, even more from it. But I had the same thing on my last ceremony with ayahuasca. The same message. It was the same. Yeah, there was noise. I was just with my sister. She was moving around so much right next to me. But I was just like, no, you need to stay. You need to be zen. Like, you just need to stay still here within all of this. And that was, I think, in 2020. Yeah.
the perfect time. Yeah. Perfect time for it. Yeah, absolutely.
It's so interesting because after that, I felt like, okay. Do you know what? It was just felt like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. We can make these powerful changes, we can do that, and yes, the medicine can absolutely help us to get there.
Yes.
As we've already said, it's the tool to help you get there, but we have the capacity to make these changes in our own. We just, the healing journey is the most important thing, and obviously there's different tools to get us there, and ayahuasca has been one of those tools, which I'm super grateful for.
Yes.
But we can find other ways. We don't have to drink ayahuasca to get us there. And because this ability to connect now, to those higher realms and to the fourth dimension, because it is now coming into the collective consciousness. I'd say it's always been there, but our ability to be activated into it, because it is now coming into the collective consciousness, we really can. We can literally sit in a meditation and an intention and be like, I want to go in and heal this. Show me what I need to be seeing. And we can keep connecting to our third eye and just allow that journey to take place, and we can feel just as powerfully that way, if not more. Is that because we're doing that from our own space rather than
and totally. I love that, and I think that's so important, because it's like just remembering that we are and that's the message that I got in the last ceremony as well. It's like, you are steering the ship.
Absolutely,
it's you. And what you're saying here as well is ultimately the fear isn't out there. It's not. The chaos might be out there, but the fear is internal. It's an internal.
It's being created. There's a reason it's internal. It's being put upon us, for sure. But it's, do you choose to stay in that fear, or do you choose to transcend beyond that fear? And I'm not saying it's as easy as that. That's again, it's another journey to go on, to sit and look at what's triggering those fears within you. Of course, the first thing to say, if somebody is really being triggered by the fears of the external world, is to remove the things that are bringing those fears in. So stop watching the news, stop talking to people who are perpetuating it all the time. Just remove yourself from the things that are causing so much fear, and then there'll be a lot less of it. That doesn't mean there won't still be stuff internal, like you say, it's internal, but remove the external and then see what you're left with, and then you can work with what's about you.
Well, that's really interesting that you said that, because then that also applies with the ceremony and the plant medicines, because if it's coming through there, because what you described earlier is totally what I had experienced. This in a few of my ceremonies, it was just this really freaking dark energy, and it was fearful. So that is also one of the things, remove it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't let it come in. And I think until people who have listened to this conversation, they wouldn't have potentially known that.
Completely
didn't know it, but like we said, awareness is key. So are you going to choose to let the awareness allow you to make different decisions, or are you going to choose to be in the fear of what we're saying, but still go and do it anyway? It's the choice is up to each individual, and there's no judgment on what choice the person makes either, because it's part of their journey and process as well. But the awareness is here. It's coming through this podcast right now, and then you just make your choices with that awareness.
It's so true what you said as well, because it sounds like such a strange thing to say now, I think, because it's like people don't necessarily recognize that, I can just step away. It's because there's this huge thing that it's like, no, I don't know, it's weird. It feels like she's showing you what you need to see, that sentence. You know what I mean? And it's just like, some reason you think you need to keep going back,
but she's a powerful teacher. So somebody as powerful as her, why does she need you to keep coming back and seeing time and time again
the same thing?
It's like, yes, like maybe in a year's time or 2 years' time, once you've been on that journey of what she's already shown you, what you're already learning, once you've embodied it, as I've said, once you've gone into that process, then it may be like, I've reached another point now, and there's something else that I need to see, and I'm not seeing it by myself, and so you get called back. But if she's as good a teacher as what we all believe she is, then she's powerful enough to show you that in one ceremony, or I drank 5 times in a 2-week period, because that's what I went into. 5 ceremonies is plenty enough time to be able to show what I need to see in that period. I say I didn't drink again until 2015. That was 2012. Drank again in 2015, and that was not a calling, although I now see the value of it, but it was not a calling. So I didn't get called again until 2018 to drink, and that was the last time I drank. And I got a message actually through I'd drunk in Ibiza again, and I drank a couple of times in a period on a retreat, and I I knew when I left that the medicine wasn't done with me. It brought me so far, but there was a journey I had to go on within myself to accept and acknowledge what I'd been shown in ayahuasca, to accept and acknowledge that before I could go on to the next part. But I knew I needed to drink again. I knew I had to go on my own journey of acceptance to what she'd already shown me, and then I knew I was going to need to drink again for her to show me the next part once I'd accepted what she showed me. So I think it was like end of 2017 that I drank, and then it was early 2018 that I went in for the next part, which I knew I was gonna go to. And so the next part was in the UK, and I drank. It was meant to be for 2 nights over a weekend, and I went and I had the experience. I drank on the first night. Very, very powerful experience. Very much linked in with the previous experience and etc. And at the end of that experience, I got the message from ayahuasca. That's it, you don't need to drink again. So I was meant to be drinking the next night, and I said to the shamans, who were very well respected shaman, they were British, but I think they've been maybe about 20 years or something of
yeah.
So they were very well known and respected. But I said to them the next day, look, I've been told not to drink. I was very, very shocked and surprised to see that they were trying to encourage me to drink that night, despite the fact that the medicine itself had told me I didn't need to drink. And we were in group circle that evening, and something was even expressed. They didn't direct it at me, but I knew it was at me, about like, if you think you don't need to drink ayahuasca anymore, that's coming from your ego. And I was like, wow, no, I'm listening to the medicine itself. You're the ones coming from your ego by trying to force me to do something that you're meant to be. You're masters of this medicine. You're holders of the space for this medicine. If the medicine's telling me not to drink, surely we respect that. But that wasn't what came through, and I was very, very surprised about that. And certainly at that time, I didn't know that when I was getting like, that's it, you don't need to drink anymore. I just thought it was like, you don't need to drink the next night. But it has actually ended up being. I have not drank since then, and I know I won't drink again. I mean, for a while there, I was saying never say never. Maybe I'll get called, but I don't think I will. But now I firmly say that I won't drink again, because I'm fully aware of the hijack that's taken place, and because I've been able to move myself through the help of ayahuasca for sure. The ayahuasca has been hugely helpful on my journey, but there's been many other things as well. As a dream weaver, I'm able to, that's my own. Every single night I go in, I set different intentions to, what doesn't have to be every night that I set an intention, but every night I'm going in and I'm doing healing work on myself. And then when things come up for me, I'm like, oh, look at that, we need to shift that. Okay, let's get into that in my dream state. So I have my own tool to heal, but I've moved now so beyond the medicine that I would not consider the need for that medicine anymore, because I've moved beyond that. So and that is not ego, that is just a recognition and an observation of what is, and also a recognition of our own power to move beyond the medicine. And we've got to know that we've got higher levels of consciousness than what the medicine, or can act, we can access high levels of consciousness than what the medicine itself is able to.
Fascinating. I mean, that's wild. I can't believe that they said that to you.
I was quite shocked.
And it's so mad, because it's just so shows you how twisted it is as well, because they're trying to say that you coming from your ego. But this is the thing as well. I feel like there's this whole thing like, oh, you just have to keep doing it. Like I was saying earlier, there's not a conversation about when do you stop. That's not. It's strange that that's not a thing. But obviously it's the shaman, and just gonna say it, but they're making money from it at the end of the day as well.
Exactly, it's true.
And and then it becomes this thing as well, where it's like, really, people get really offended, like, oh, this weird thing comes up, like, you can't say that you're better than the you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's actually like, well, why not?
Yeah, exactly, because we are all powerful beings. Well, we have this as well, don't we? Like, people are offended if you say, like, we're God, but we're all tiny fragments of God here, experiencing ourselves experientially. That's okay. That's not egotistic. That's actually not egotistic. That is recognizing the power of who we are. God itself, whatever God is, source energy itself, wants us to recognize that we are part of that.
Yes.
That's the whole point. We've been disconnected from source. That's what the ascension process is. We descended from source. We descended from the oneness, from the godliness of who we are. And now we are ascending back to that oneness, back to source energy, back to God, back home to who we truly are. What is offensive about that?
Yes.
Conditioned to be less than what we are. And anyone who, you know, if you talk about being more, it's like, oh, that person's got an ego, or that person loves themselves, that person, you know, we've had that our whole lives through school, like, oh, that person, you know, that person loves themselves. What's wrong with loving yourself? That's where we want to be. That's where we're trying to get to. But you have the negative connotation of it. So
yes,
we are more, and that's what we're here to. That's what we're here to recognize, to remember. We are more.
Exactly.
We are powerful. So
and so true. And it's not the ego thing. It's also the recognition that it's all of us. You know, it's we. It's not just it's we.
But this is the thing. We've been the conditioning and the separation from source and the separation from one is the individualization. It's the ego, and it's the ego that's getting offended because it's identifying, as I said earlier, with the medicine that it's drunk or what have you. So it's being offended in its individualization. But it's not we going back to the oneness. It is the we. It's the collective. It's no one person is better than another. When I talk about there's those of us leading the ascension process, that doesn't mean that the leaders are more or better than the people who are simply here to experience, because every soul has come here to have the experience of this ascension process. You have to excuse my cat. We've done well to not, because I've got 4 of them, so we've done well to not have it so far. What was I saying? It's, you know, the point of, what was I saying there? What can you remember what I was saying?
The point of the ascension of the leaders in the ascension.
Oh, yes. Okay. So everyone has chosen to be here for this very time in history. Some have come to lead the way, and they've trained life after life after life to hold that capacity and that ability to do so. Some people have come to simply experience themselves awakening. Now, that doesn't mean that one's better than the other. It's just the choice that the soul has made for the evolution of their soul to have whatever experience that they have chosen to have during this ascension process. But we're all one. We're all part of the oneness. We all bring, I always say, like, we all hold different parts of a jigsaw puzzle. You know, when we're creating this new world that we are collectively creating, we hold different parts of a jigsaw puzzle, and some might hold bigger parts of the picture than others, but we all have to come together to create that one big picture. That is the oneness, that's the wholeness, that's the we, it's the collective. And we're moving into the collective now and away from the individualized, can't say that word, individualization, away from the self. And ayahuasca is a consciousness. It's, you know, it's a beautiful plant consciousness, but it's still individualizing something, and you're still giving, if you're giving your power away to the plant, you're not empowering yourself. You know, it doesn't mean by drinking the medicine we are empowering ourselves if we continue to hold the power within ourselves and take the tools and the learning for what it is. But if we keep continuously drinking it and continuously asking for more, then we are disempowering ourselves.
That's something that we didn't actually talk about yet, but it's a good point. But if you're doing that and also putting it on a pedestal, that happens a lot. And putting it higher than you, like this, we know that program is over. You know.
But it's, again, it's part of the process, because, you know, I say this about spirit guides and stuff. So I mean, I'm a channeler. I don't channel. I don't have a spirit enter my body to channel. I merge my consciousness, and together, you know, we blend our minds to find the rhymes, because I channel in poetry. So that's what comes through. We're very much a team, rather than me giving my power to him, to the being that I'm channeling. We work together. And what was I going to say with that? What was the point I was going to
talking about power?
Oh, yeah, power, giving the power away. So so when we first when we first connect with spirit, or something like this, or the medicine, or anything like that, we do say, like, you hear it a lot in the spiritual communities, like, you know, trust in spirit, you know, just surrender to spirit. And to begin with, we kind of do need to do that because we are disempowered. This is the world we've been living in. As we've said, we have been conditioned to be disempowered. So spirit, ayahuasca, what have you, they are more powerful than us. When we're first going through our journey, we are looking at something. They do hold more. Well, we think they hold more knowledge and wisdom and consciousness than us because we haven't yet connected to our own. We are empowered. But the more we go on the journey into self, to heal ourselves, to connect to our own divine knowledge and wisdom, to connect to the godliness within us, to connect to source energy, whatever you want to call that, the more empowered we start to become. So then we start, we start to become on par with the medicine, with the entities we're channeling or what have you. But the more we go on our journey, the more we start to rise above that. Now, you don't have to rise above that. You can stay on par if you want to. That's your choice. But we can rise above that because we hold all of that divine knowledge and wisdom within our soul. The process of ascension is to remember that we can access that through our own self.
Exactly.
So yeah, yes, to begin with, surrender to spirit, surrender to the medicine, because we're in our disempowered state. But the more we empower ourselves, the less we actually have to do that, and we just surrender ourselves to our own divine knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like when people think that it feels like an attack, then it's because that program is running,
Yeah, exactly. And it's not an attack. It's just bringing a new level of consciousness into someone's awareness. And we've spoken about this before. Like, you can have what's true in one dimension may not be true in another. For example, if you look at 12D consciousness, I mean, I'm not saying I know everything about 12D consciousness, but there'll be levels of consciousness that come through from 12D that just cannot make sense in 3D. It doesn't mean that the consciousness isn't true. It just means that in 3D, a person does not have that capacity to access that yet. So, for example, one of the things I hear being spoken about a lot is, you can. You can heal yourself just like that. Believe you are healed, and you are healed.
Oh yeah. This is a big one, actually.
Yeah. So now that may be, I don't know what level of consciousness that is, but let's say it's 12D for ease sake. So yes, that will be true. You can literally say, like, okay, I am fully healed, and you can wake up the next morning and be fully healed. If you believe that in every cell in your body, then absolutely that is a level. If you can access that level of consciousness, then that can be done. But there are a lot of people who are saying that, who I look at and go, why aren't you fully healed then? If that's true and you believe that, why aren't you fully healed? They're not fully healed because they haven't been able to fully embody that level of consciousness yet, because they're not in 12D consciousness yet. They're in 3D or 4D or 5D or maybe 6 or 7, but they're not in a position to fully embody that level of consciousness yet. Now, I was sick for 6 years, and it took me another 6 years to get better after I quit my job, or to fully heal from those physical ailments that I had. And I remember at the time just being like, people saying to me like, "Oh, just say, I am healthy."
Oh yeah.
Say I am healthy. Every cell in my body rejected that and resisted that and got angry about that. Would be like, but you're not healthy. You've got this and you've got that, and this is happening. You're in pain. And so that would create so much, let's say, resistance, that I would create more of the ill health. It didn't work. It can't possibly work in the level of consciousness that I was in when I was very much plugged into my, the 3D consciousness. It might be true in 12D what's being said, but it cannot be true in the third dimension. Now, the more that I move through the different dimensions, the more I embody the different levels of consciousness, the more I heal and grow myself, the more I can believe that to be true. I'm a dream weaver. I go to bed, I set an intention. I'm like, let's heal this shit. And overnight I'm healing stuff, and the next morning and I wake up, I'm like, wow, that was a powerful night. I can really feel that shift. but it's not boom like that overnight, everything's done. It's a process, right? It's you know, I'm sick of that word process, but you know, it that's what it is. Like you can heal what you're ready for at that moment in time. By the time I get to 12D consciousness, and I can fully be in that belief of, yes, you know, click your fingers and it's all done, I've already been on a journey where I've probably actually healed the majority of that stuff anyway, to allow me to get into that level of consciousness.
Love that.
So just going back to what you were saying there about being offended, what we have to realize is we're all in our own, as I said, we're all on our own journey, we're all in our own places. So if somebody is currently embodying 5 consciousness, it might be challenging for them to hear somebody talking from 7th or 8th dimensional consciousness, because it's not, doesn't feel true or right for them in the level of consciousness that they're currently in, and that's okay. But as they move through their journey, they'll then start to maybe move into 6th, 7th, and then it will start to become, because they'll be like, I've moved past that now, and now I can actually see that those words that were coming are true, but it didn't feel right for them in 5D consciousness. But 6th and 7th and 8th and 9th and whatever level people are getting to. So this, I think it's just an important, I think that's just an important thing to acknowledge, is like something might not be true for you right now, but it doesn't mean it won't be true for you in the future. You're just working your way through your own journey and for your own levels of consciousness. That is perfectly okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's so cool that you have described it in that way. I'm really glad, because I feel like people talk about this levels of consciousness. What does it even mean, you know? But also, just what you were saying about the healing. I know a lot of people do it, and obviously, to an extent, like, you don't want to just discount it. We are powerful and we can heal ourselves. But I don't know, what I kind of hear is, yes, but we're just not quite there yet. Like you're describing, really. It's like, and at the same time, in order to do it, you don't want to not say it. You kind of, you know, you want to, but then, completely. But
by setting an intention, I want to heal this, that starts the wheels in motion. It's like, okay, I intend to heal this, and the wheels are set in motion, and everything that you need to heal that will start to come into your space, if you believe that it will. But it's not necessarily going to be click your fingers, it's done overnight. It's going to be
completely.
that keyword process.
Patience. Process and patience.
Process and patience, exactly.
It definitely, I mean, for me, time, it takes a lot of time. But just what you were saying about that, I want, because I've just been listening to Conversations with God. I don't know if you've ever.
I love those books. I absolutely love
them. My word. Everyone that I've told has just said that they're so amazing.
Yeah, they really are. Yeah.
But there's the one part when they're saying about manifesting, basically, and if you manifest I want, then you just purely manifesting wanting. So you don't get the thing. So in a way, it is important to use the affirmations like I'm healing, I'm healed, you know. But then it's so interesting, because then obviously from an outside perspective, it might seem like, what?
Well, it's the process word again with that, because what I was doing when I was I couldn't say I am. I could not do that. But what I could do is say, okay, I will be healed in the future. And there's a teaching around that people, you know, say that you shouldn't do that you should, because I will be is a future statement, and you don't want it to be in the future, you want it to be now. But again, that's another, if somebody can't embody that level of consciousness of I am yet, which I couldn't in that 3D headspace I was in.
I know what you mean.
I could do is say I will be in the future. I can believe that I will be in the future. By doing that, I was setting an intention to be better in the future. So what would then start coming in would be things that would, you know, maybe there'd be, I'd find the right practitioner, because I wasn't. The right practitioner. So the right practitioner would come in, and I'd be like, oh wow, okay, I'm now working with this person. I can actually feel that I am getting a bit better now. So it's like, I am getting better, but I'm not healthy right now. I can't accept that, but I am better. So it's moving it a bit closer to you. Time, you know, but we have to fully embody these beliefs. we have to fully embody these teachings, this level of consciousness. And to fully embody these levels of consciousness, we have to go on the journey to do it. We have to experience it. We have to sit where we're at for a period of time to allow that, to allow that embodiment to come forth. We can't go from 3D to 12D like that, despite what some people might tell you, like come and be activated into 12th dimension, 12 strand DNA with me. Like if you do that from 3D, you're going to spontaneously combust. I mean, that's just not how it is. And if you are ready for 12D activation, you wouldn't be looking for that outside of yourself.
Yeah, you don't need it.
So if you're ready for 12D, you're activating that within your own self. If you're asking somebody else to do it, you're not ready for 12D. So that's the whole thing. We've got this spiritual bypassing again, or this skipping steps, when actually, what we want to be doing is like the lesson with ayahuasca, taking it, sitting in it for a while, learning it, understanding it, embodying it, and then moving on to the next part of the journey. So yeah.
I feel like what you were saying about I don't know. I feel like a lot of the time, because we're here in 3D, we want to put things into binary. So it's like, it's either I or, but I feel like it can be everything and. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I don't know, like yeah, exactly.
Understanding that.
Yes, completely. So even what you were saying, like say you were healed at 12th dimension, like that is true. And at that level, which is also now, you are. So it's like you can say both at the same time as well. Like I am healed and I am healing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's just we're just working our way through life.
Yeah, true. So true.
and this, back to what you said about the cancel culture. Like we don't need to cancel anything. Like everything has been a valid part of our experience and a valid part of our growth, as we said, and we're just working our way through. But I just think we need to start hearing each other more instead of the cancel, instead of the dismissing.
Totally.
That's offending my ego. That's that doesn't fit in with my identity of myself or my view of the world. Let's just listen a little bit more, just hear and accept that something might not fit in with where you're at right now, but that doesn't mean that it won't be true for you in the future. And it's just hearing it. And I say, like with this, what we've spoke about here today, acknowledge it. If it doesn't fit in with where you're at right now, acknowledge it, put a pin in it, and be like, maybe one day I'll connect with that and I'll re-listen to it then. And that's it. You don't need to get offended by it. You don't need to go into fear of it. Just carry on doing what you're doing. And one day if you feel like you might want to make a different choice, re-listen to the video.
Yeah, the cancel thing is mad, and so much energy is wasted in like disagreeing and arguing, but like you said, it's part of life. It's part of this journey and we don't know what we don't know. We come to know it when we come to know it. It's the way it is.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I'm really glad that you spoke about the dimensions. I think it's such an amazing model to use to really understand. And when you're saying it, it's not necessarily like you're going anywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're still here. It's just about it's vibrational, isn't it? It's literally tapping into, like, as we go on our journey, we raise our vibration and we just tap a little bit higher into a new level of consciousness. That those levels of consciousness exist within us anyway. It's not like you said, we're not going anywhere. We don't have to go somewhere to be activated into 12D. We're going deeper into our own understanding and knowledge. It's there. It's just maybe not ready to be seen at this moment in time, because you maybe wouldn't understand it at where you're at right now, because you still have to go on your journey and you process a bit more, and then you go a little bit deeper and then you activate those levels of consciousness that already exist within you. Just activate them to come up with it, to come through you into your conscious mind for you to be able to start understanding them more. But it already exists. It's already there within you.
Yes. Amazing. I feel like we went off a little bit, but
definitely went off on the ayahuasca tangent, didn't we? But it's all good.
Yeah, it was all really good. Oh, thank you. Amazing conversation. I really enjoyed that, and I feel like we got quite a lot out there.
Yeah. No, thank you, I say, for holding space for that and giving me a platform to speak as well. I really appreciate having that space.
Yeah, and also thank you for the idea to do the series as well.
So it's a collaboration, like
Yes.
working together in the collective is what it's all about.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Do you have any final words, or are you satisfied?
I think I've probably said enough.
Yeah.
Haven't stopped talking.
I know, I feel like that is totally something that you wanted to speak on.
Yeah, there's been a lot that I've wanted to say for a long time, and I've been really. It's been about me stepping into my divine authority as well. I've had to go. I've always had a lot to say, and I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast then that first one I did with you, it was my first step into speaking out, and I'd had so much to say for such a long time, but had so much fear. And I can see all that fear that was there in that podcast back then, and so that's been a big part of my process and journey of, knowing I have so much to say, but really going on the journey into myself to be able to activate that level of consciousness and knowledge within myself, to really hone that in, to really understand what that knowledge is, to embody, as I've already said, to really embody that divine consciousness and that divine knowledge, so that I can be in my divine authority when I then share it with other people. That's been a journey. That has been. Yeah, there's been a lot that's been wanting. I've done many podcasts, but I think I'm really stepping up now into speaking about the higher level stuff, the things that maybe are challenging for people to hear.
Totally.
I've been in fear of maybe not wanting to offend or upset before, and I've had to go on a process and a journey for that. So yeah, it's been great to be able to share from the heart and from, I say, my own level of activated divine consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, I resonate with that as well. I think it's a process for a lot of us, really, isn't it?
It really is. We're all on the same journey. We're just different parts of it at different times. That's it.
Yeah, totally. Amazing. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. I look forward to seeing it back and listening to the other ones you've got in your series.
I know.
Ones you've got in your series.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the expansion from this as well, because I feel like it's a great foundation.
Amazing. Well, I look forward to seeing them all.
Oh,
my cats just want.
There they are. Cute.
Well, thank you very much.
So yeah, thank you so much. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode and to this podcast. We hope that you can gain many insights through the art of listening. If you haven't already, we would love it if you can follow us on YouTube, on Instagram, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts if that feels right for you. We've also just launched our first online course, Awakening 101, a ninja's guide to navigating your spiritual awakening, which is led by me and is offered via donation. So if you feel called to that, then please dive in. It's available via our website. Thank you.